Good afternoon. Wow, it's really exciting to see so many beautiful faces that are here only to hear my story. That's really an honor. So my name is Liad Demose. I was born as Semenish in a small village in the north part of Ethiopia, in the region that was called, is still called, Gondar. Most of the Jewish community used to live in two main regions, the Gondar area and the Tigray area. Because historically, the way we arrived to Ethiopia was along the Blue Nile from Egypt to the end of Lake Tana and end up in those two main regions. And growing up in a Jewish community in Ethiopia, it's a very clear identity. The component of our essence, of who we are, was very clear to us. The name of our community, Beta Israel. It means the house of Israel. It meant that from the moment that we were arriving there, we were never accepted as part of the structure of the social people there. And also, they reminded us that we are not part of the regular structure, the social structure of Ethiopia. They used to call us Falasha. Falasha, I know in many historical books it's describing the Jewish community in Ethiopia. But actually, it was a bad nickname that the Goyim gave us. So we were the Falasha, meaning that we are the people who do not have any connection to the land of Ethiopia. So we had the Falasha on one side, and we had the Beta Israel from our side. And when we were growing up, and every child in our villages, in the different Jewish villages, was growing into the descriptions of Jerusalem. Jerusalem for us was a magical word, and it had contained so much magic. When we said Jerusalem or heard the word Jerusalem, we heard and imagined the land of milk and honey. Jerusalem, or Jerusalem, as my parents used to say, the city of gold. We thought that everything in that city is made out of gold. And it's God's place. So the temple is there, and the people are so peaceful. They never fight there. And not only that they don't fight there, because of that place is so holy, people don't even touch the ground as they walk. That holy is that place. So for us it was magical, and from the day that we were born, we were dreaming to go back to Jerusalem, to the land of our forefathers. And we knew that we are part of the Beta Israel community, and every Shabbat we would go to the synagogue that was located in the center of our village. And everybody knew exactly who is part of the family and part of the Jewish community. And we had to memorize our lineage 7 generations back. So if I want to share a little bit about my family lineage, I will share with you that I am Semenish. My father's name is Tafera. His father's name is Demose. His father's name is Shetu. His father's name is Alemu. And I can only go back in 6 generations. But if I had to be living still in Ethiopia, I would have known by heart all the 7 generation lineage from my mother's side and from my father's side. And just to make sure nobody's forgetting that history, we could not marry anyone who is related to us till 7 generation. And if it was 7 generation, it's far enough to make them close again, and you can marry them. So it was a very strict rules, and we knew exactly what are the holidays that the Bible is giving us, the Orit, the Torah, Rosh Hashanah, Kippur, Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot. And we had one extra holiday that was added to our culture. We called it the Sigd. It is celebrated 50 days after Yom Kippur. And it was sort of a reminder that our spiritual leaders added to our tradition to remind us of who we are. And at that day of the Sigd, all the Jewish people from the different villages would gather on a high mountain, symbolically to a ceremony that was taking place at Mount Sinai. And we would agree again to receive upon ourselves God's presence and the agreement we made back there in the desert of Sinai. And every year we would gather the entire different community from the different villages, and we would say, next year we'll do it Be'ezrat Hashem in Jerusalem. So when I was 3 years old, my mom was having a baby, and my brother was just born. And one day my father came after the work, and he told my mom, listen, I heard that there is a Jewish person. I don't know him personally, but I heard that he heard from somebody that heard from somebody else, told him that this guy, he left his village in Tigray and went to Sudan, and then he got to Jerusalem. And now they are very happy. So we also need to do that. And she was like, really? I just gave birth. I cannot really walk anywhere. I mean, it's not possible. So he told her, okay, how much time do you need in order to prepare yourself? And she said, I don't know, but let's work on it and we'll get there. And it was 6 months after my mom gave birth to my brother that she had enough energy and she prepared enough food to go on a journey that she had no idea how long it's going to take. And after preparing everything, one day, or should I say one night, my father came home with a guide. And he told her, we have a guide and we are ready to go. So she said, but we didn't do anything else besides preparing food. We didn't sell anything, we didn't do anything. So he said, no need to do anything. Because if you'll sell things, the neighbors will start to ask questions. And if it's a communist regime, you know, in a few minutes, the government, the officials, or the soldiers will come and start to ask questions in the good case scenario, and if not, they would just kill us. So, doing nothing, we just left in the middle of the night. The most unusual thing to do in Ethiopia is to walk outside at night after the sunset. And I was really thrilled that we are doing the forbidden thing. Instead of going to sleep, we started to walk. And after 12 nights of walking from our village, we got to the Sudanian border. And at that point, our guide, the nice guide, he told us that he cannot show us the way all the way to Jerusalem. He can only show us till that point. And he just disappeared. And we were all scared and we didn't know what to do or what is going to happen with our family. And my father, he took the leadership. He said, it doesn't matter. If God brought us till this place, we'll manage and we'll fulfill our dream. And we ended up in a refugee camp in Sudan. And like us, more and more families started to come to Sudan, because they were also dreaming to go to Zion, to go to Jerusalem. And living in refugee camps of Sudan was a very challenging thing. I don't really remember a lot of that period. And till today, it's very hard for many of the adults to speak about that era of time. In their memory, it's almost like they shut down that window of time. But I know that many people did not survive the walking in the desert of the Sudan. And many people who did survive the walking did not survive the conditions in those refugee camps. And people were dying every day like flies. And my mom was just praying so hard that we will end up, fulfilling our dream and going out from that hell on earth. And for us, it happened a year and a half after going from one refugee camp to another one. We end up contacting by the Mossad people, and they told us to come to a certain point in a very specific day, and they told us to get on a truck, a bunch of group of the Ethiopian Jewish people, and we were driving into the darkness. We had no idea where we were going. And after a while, they just stopped the truck. We were told to get off, and we only saw these two very huge and strange lights from out of the darkness, and a very huge noise that we have never heard anything like that before. And the people were just shocked, and we were frozen from scared and fear. We did not know what it is or what we are being expected to do. And on that spot, there were emissaries of the Mossad agents, and as well as soldiers, I guess. And they had a very big, important mission to do, to take the people out of that desert very quickly, operating on a hostile land with no relationship with Israel. It was really, really crazy what was going there. But we had no idea of that background and the pressure that they were on. We were just scared. And at that moment, one of our leaders, a very old, wise person, he got to the front, stood next to the soldiers, and he started to speak to the crowd. He told them, "Do you remember all the forefathers' prophets? Do you remember how we were told from age 0 that we are going to be back to Jerusalem on the wings of the eagle from the four corners of the world?" And people started to forget about their fear and said, yeah, we do remember that story, but how is that related to what is happening here? And he said, "Look at that thing in front of you. It's just like a huge bird. That's the eagle that God is sending us. If you thought that we made all the way till here not to continue to Jerusalem, you're being wrong, because this is God's way to take us back home." And in few minutes, we were all on that airplane. And I remember that we were given challah on that plane. And that's a special structure. It was such a spongy structure. And I ate it like crazy. My mom, she couldn't really eat it, so I asked for her share as well. And I was eating my father's share as well. And it was so much fun, because that was really like an amusement for me. And as we started to leave the ground and the airplane was on the air, I think maybe because of the angle, I don't know, or the excitement, I was just vomiting everything. But it was really exciting times for me and for my family. Luckily, all of us survived. And we got to Eretz Israel. We were absorbed in an absorption center in Afula. And we went to Ulpan. And I remember after maybe 1 month, I was already mumbling fluent Hebrew and almost forgetting my Amharic. But I was just excited. It was the first time for me to be able to go outside and play with other children. All this year and a half in the refugee camps, I was not allowed to go outside of my mother's side. So I will just share with you a last story. My first day to the kindergarten. All excited, like my excitement was over the top. And I'm like ready with my sandwich and my bag, and I'm all dressed up, woke up really early before everybody else. And I'm going to my kindergarten. I was like really excited. We enter the kindergarten, and the teacher is saying, Shalom, Brucha Ba'ah, and I'm saying, Shalom, I'm giving her a hug. She didn't understand where it came from. And then the rest of the children are starting to arrive, and everybody's crying. Like, because it's the first day of Gan. Everybody's crying. And I was like looking at them, that is so weird. Is that what they do in Israel? So I was going to the teacher and saying, should I also start to cry? Because I know how to cry. And she said, no, please don't do that. So now, many years after, I know that because of the separational stage of the parent from the child, everybody's crying, but I was really in a different structure and phase in my mind as I was going to the kindergarten. Fast forward, I went to high school, I graduated, I went to national service, I worked with teenagers who were living in a boarding school, growing up in families who could not support them economically and educationally. And after doing that, I traveled in North America to improve my English, and then went back to Bar Ilan University. I studied informal education and sociology and anthropology. After that, I found myself rolling back to the Jewish people again and connecting to the organization that I'm working today at, the Jewish Agency, meeting the people who enable all what we see in Israel. Starting from the establishment of the state, building cities, kibbutzim, moshavim, youth villages to help the children who came from the Shoah, and helping lone soldiers, and helping young families, new immigrants. And this is like really an honor for me to be here today, and thank you, because I see you firsthand. So thank you, toda raba.